at your status, at your level, knowing who your dad is and so on and so forth, you have access to like the greatest trainers in the world. You could have went with Chad, you could have went with Milos, you could have went with Farah, Aceto, you name it. You could have went with any of them. What made you pick Ben?
I'm glad you asked this question.
What's going on, you guys? EP09 back here with another video, and today I recently caught the latest MD Muscle podcast on the Muscular Development YouTube page, where Hunter Labrada did his first podcast appearance since after his showing at the 2022 Olympia. These guys touched on a few cool things, and I'll actually put a link down in the description below for you guys to watch the entire interview, but at one point the topic of Ben Chow came up. For those of you that may not be aware, Ben Chow is, well, he's best known for being a regular contributor on the Bodybuilding and Bollocks podcast on Fouad Abiad's channel. That's where most people know him from. But Ben is also a prep coach, and he's Hunter's prep coach. And their first show working together was for the 2022 Olympia. As many had criticized Hunter's physique that he brought to the Olympia this year, the question I was asking myself was, will Hunter stick with Ben, or will he work with a more reputable coach with a proven track record? You know, think about the Hani Rambads of the world, or, you know, George Farah, Chris Aceto, guys like that. Because when it comes to working with top pros, this has been Ben's biggest client to date, no question. So the question came up about Hunter's choice for a coach in the 2023 season. Check it out.
At your status, at your level, knowing who your dad is and so on and so forth, you have access to like the greatest trainers in the world. You could have went with Chad, you could have went with Milos, you could have went with Farah, Aceto, you name it. You could have went with any of them. What made you pick Ben?
I'm glad you asked this question. Just so everyone listening knows, every person he just listed, I have their cell phone numbers in my phone, and I can pick them up and text them whenever I want. And I would have if I wanted to work with them. Those coaches are so good because of how long they have been doing it. They are absolutely incredible at what they do, and the athletes they've worked with are absolutely incredible. But I've said the same thing to everyone. They helped these athletes achieve greatness over the course of, 5, 6, 7, 8 years with, 10, 12, 15, 20 shows under their belt. And, during that time, some of them missed the mark too with their guys. They figured it out over time, though, and it was a team dynamic. With me, the dynamic that I have with the coach is a lot more important than anything else to me. But, more so than anything, we clicked well, and it was our very first show together ever. Put it this way, I don't think people will be asking why I'm not working with one of those people after this year. That's probably that's probably the easiest way to say it, man.
So I think this speaks to a couple of things in terms of, where Hunter's head is at. I think first off, this does show that Hunter enjoyed working with Ben this year. Ben and Hunter must have a good connection in working together, An athlete has to have a lot of trust in the coach that they're working with. So where does that trust come from? I think for these two, it comes down to communication, dedication, and also having patience and working through the process of going through a prep, learning from each prep and making adjustments to improve that next showing, which of course is what all coaches and athletes want to accomplish, but being their first round working together, I think it's just a little bit more important. Actually, when you think about it, the fact that Ben and Hunter were able to pull off a 7th place finish in a lineup that was considered the best Olympia in, many years arguably, during their first prep working together, that inspires a lot of confidence in their ability to make massive improvements, for the 2023 season. The fact that they came up with the plan to do at least 2 shows this season, regardless of if Hunter qualifies for the Olympia at the first show, which he said he will win the first show, their plan is to do a second show no matter what in order to figure out the peak. And I think this is a smart move. Ben can gain more experience on how Hunter will react throughout 2 entire preps, and you guys got to remember, the 2022 Olympia was only Hunter's 10th show that he has ever done in his life. So guys, keep your eyes on Hunter and Ben this year. I think this team has a lot of potential, and you know what? They have a lot left to prove too. So another guy with, of course, a lot of potential and feels like he had something to prove after his 2022 Olympia showing is Andrew Jacked. Andrew treated his first season in the IFBB Pro League, as he described it, as a quote-unquote trial run, to see if professional bodybuilding is really something that he wants to go all in on, because he has an education too, right? It's funny for him to describe it so casually, really, though. For his first season, working with George Farah, winning the Texas Pro, winning the Arnold Classic UK, and then finishing 8th at the Olympia, while he also had bronchitis and was on antibiotics during his prep? Oh man, that's a hell of a trial run if you ask me. So I guess since Andrew is now taking his bodybuilding career, seriously, Andrew has made the move from Dubai to California to be trained by Chris Psycho Lewis. Andrew is looking to be pushed beyond his limits, and without a doubt, he's learning a new level of pain and suffering, which is exactly what he needs to progress. But how did this dream team come to be? Chris Aceto reveals how him and Psycho Lewis ended up working with Andrew Jack during an interview on the latest It's Just Bodybuilding podcast with Dusty Henshaw, Scott McNally, and Ron Partlow. Well, he revealed it after he fixed his connection problem.
So Chris Lewis said, yes, and just pushed.
Isn't Chris's day job property management? He should know a tech, right? An internet tech?
You froze up a little bit.
Yeah, it's why CNBC won't let me on, because I get a bad connection.
Anyway, here's how Andrew Jack ended up working with Chris Aceto and Chris Psycho Lewis.
Yeah, no, I'm helping Andrew Jack. This is like day 12 or yeah. So no, he got in touch with Chris Lewis, and Chris is biased towards me, and Chris said, I can help you, if you want to come out here. He wanted to go to California and train, which I think is a big step, right? To come from Dubai all the way to California. So, motivated to say, okay, I'm trying to go next level. Next thing I know, I'm up ridiculous early. Chris sent me a text at like 5 a.m. and I answered in 2 seconds. He said, I'm like, what are you doing up? It's 2 a.m. He said, I think Andrew is coming out here. I'm like, who's Andrew? I'm like, so Andrew Jack. And he said, Andrew Jack. And I said,
I know a lot of people.
Yeah. So he said, he's coming out, and I just kept on like saying Chris, and Chris said I should get with you, and I said, yeah, I told him, you just like, Andrew, I'm not telling you anything that nobody else has told you. You just got to be at your best, and that's it.
So pretty interesting stuff, actually. The fact that it was actually Chris Psycho Lewis that told Andrew basically that him and Chris Aceto were going to be a package deal, I wasn't expecting that. I figured that Andrew reached out to Chris Aceto first, but, apparently not. In fact, and this shows you just how new to the IFBB Pro League Andrew Jack really is, he didn't even know who Chris Aceto was.
And, the funny part is Andrew was reluctant, because that's the way the world is right now, is, he was like, honestly, he was like, well, is Chris any good?
He's only one of the greatest prep coaches of all time, no big deal. Anyway, judging by these update pictures, it looks like things are going well so far. It's only been almost a couple weeks, but it looks like it's going well. I'm not expecting massive changes in Andrew's physique for the Arnold Classic, but I am expecting an improvement from the Olympia, and I think that's fair to say. Andrew is a genetic freak, Chris Psycho Lewis is a world-class trainer, and Chris Aceto is the best of the best in prep coaching, so I bet he's got some tricks up his sleeve. So let's see what Andrew can bring to the Arnold in under 6 weeks. So there is one guy where I really don't know how you can even make improvements to his physique, is Shaun Clarida. And that's a compliment, really. Shaun just finished showing us the absolute perfection at the Olympia, but he's still hard at work to, stand next to the big boys in the open class. I really do admire Shaun's work ethic. On the most recent Cutler cast that I watched, Jay Cutler said that Nick Walker is probably the most dedicated athlete to bodybuilding at its core, in terms of when it comes to training and dieting and just that bodybuilding mindset, But when you see training like this, I think Shaun is pretty close to that level. I mean, he looks like he's training with the intensity that you'd see from a guy in full-blown off-season during a ridiculously intense training session, trying to gain every ounce of muscle as humanly possible. Not a guy that's 6 weeks out from a competition. He's driven and he's coming for that win. Will he get that win going up against the giants of the sport? Well, wouldn't that be something? So that's going to do it for me in this video, you guys. Leave me a comment down below with what you think. Can the team of Hunter Labrada and Ben Chow improve on the package that Hunter brings to the stage in 2023? Can the dream team of Chris Lewis and Chris Aceto bring in a better Andrew Jack to the Arnold Classic? If Shaun Clarida's intense training is any indication as to where he might place at the Arnold Classic, where do you think he'll place? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to EP09. Be sure to like and subscribe.